What's actually going on with Golovkin? Ever since his Derevchenko fight, he's only had one fight last year, and he's not actually been that active. Now, there's been loads of fighters that have been calling him out. Not that many fighters, but quite a few fighters that have been calling him out. Obviously, you had Demetrious Andrade, who's actually called him out. I'm gonna make a separate video on that, but I'm just curious what's happening with Golovkin. Obviously, I think he might have lost his fire. He doesn't seem to have the same drive at this moment in time. Obviously, his counterpart, his rival Canelo, who he's fought twice, has gone on to do great things. Since their second fight, he's gone up to light heavyweight, won a title there. He's fought like several top level fighters like the likes of Billy Joe Saunders, Callum Smith, and stopped them. I mean, he's done a lot of great things with his particular career at this point since he fought Golovkin. But Golovkin, even though he's won 2 titles against Derevchenko and he's done a few good things, he's not been doing as much. So I'm just trying to think what his mindset is at this point in time. I think Golovkin knows at this point in time that he's not what he once was. 10 years ago, when he was the boogeyman and nobody wanted to fight him, and even Canelo at one point was ducking him, and he was scared to. Nobody wanted to go in there with him. Like, he had the likes of Cotto, who was an absolute animal, who would fight anyone, who's as brave as you can be as a fighter. Cotto didn't want to fight him. Of all the fighters that Cotto has been in the ring with, he's been in there with Margarito, he's been in there with Shane Mosley, he's been in there with Sergio Martinez, he's been in there with Mayweather, he's been in there with Pacquiao. All of these fighters that he's been in there with, but he did not want to fight Golovkin. And obviously I don't think he's a coward for that. At that point in his career, he's been in a lot of wars, and he probably thought, what's the upside to fighting Golovkin at this point in my career? Because I've had all these wars, I've been in there with all these great fighters, but there's no reason for me to fight someone like Golovkin, because he doesn't have as much. There's nothing in it for me. But he does say a lot when a fighter of the caliber of like a Cotto doesn't want to fight you. Like, if he was an easy fight, he probably would have taken that fight. But there's a reason why he didn't take that fight. So when he was going through his absolute tear, when he was going through like 20 consecutive knockouts, nobody wanted to fight him at that point. When he showed a bit of fragility against Kell Brook, when he fought Kell Brook in the UK, all of a sudden, like, a lot more fighters became a lot more brave to fight him. But I think in the Derevchenko fight, he felt like he was swimming uphill. Like he never felt like he was at that point where he was actually making progress in terms of he just didn't look the same in the fight against Derevchenko. And I think at this point in time, he's just trying to cash out. He's trying to find the right fight to take where he's not in as much where he can make a lot of money, which is fair enough, but he can also win. So he's probably thinking at this point in time he wants to take a fight against the likes of Murata. He probably wants a third Canelo fight. Obviously, he's been in there twice with Canelo. In my opinion, if there is a third Canelo fight, I actually think Canelo would win, because I just feel like he's a lot fresher. And since their fight, he's come along leaps and bounds. And I'm not saying Golovkin hasn't, but Golovkin has been declining since their second fight. So I feel like Canelo is on his way up while Golovkin is on his way down. So if they were to fight, my money would actually be on Canelo, because he's a lot fresher and he just looks like he's in his prime right now, and he is the pound for pound #1 fighter in the world. Obviously, a lot of people think that Canelo did win one of the two of the fights with Golovkin, but obviously we just never know at this point in time what Golovkin's going to do. So yeah, tell me your thoughts below. What do you think is going on with Golovkin? I don't think he's going to fight in Andrade, because Andrade is a high risk, low reward type fighter. If you beat him, you don't really get much for it, because nobody wants to fight him anyway. So yeah, that's my opinions. Obviously, he's not in his prime anymore, as he showed against. He did show against Derevchenko. He's just not the same Golovkin back in the past, when the Golovkin that was like knocking out, breaking Macklin's ribs and like destroying everyone. That Golovkin is actually gone. This new Golovkin, he needs to be careful about his next move in terms of who he fights next. In terms of what I think he's going to do next, I think he's going to probably fight a Murata in Japan. That's a fight that he can potentially win, and it's I believe it's for a title. And he's I think he's edging towards a third Canelo fight, because I think he just wants to cash out at this point. But you can tell, like, I remember there was a time when Golovkin was one of the most active champions in boxing. Like, this was a guy that used to fight like 3-4 times a year, maybe 5-6 times a year, making title defenses. Now he's taking gaps like every year. Generally, like, Golovkin's the type of fighter, he would fight a top fighter and then you fight a weaker opposition, then he fights a top fighter, then he fights a weaker opposition. He's not like a for example, a Froch who would just fight great fighters back to back and beat them. He would fight a top fighter, then you fight a weaker fighter, then you fight a top fighter, then he fights a weaker fighter. If you notice, that's usually the pattern that he follows in his career. So yeah, it's going to be fun to see what Golovkin chooses to do next, whether he chooses to become, if he gets that third fight against Canelo, if he chooses to actually get another fight with maybe a Murata or something like that. It'll be fun to see what happens next in his career. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him actually finish his career off in a high. Golovkin was a fun fighter to watch in his prime. He wasn't as explosive as other punchers in the past. Like, he wasn't a fast fighter, but it was fun to see like a fighter like him who just put it on you. Basically, he's a fighter that pressured you, and he was a fighter that literally tried to take your head off with every punch, and he'd usually set up punches with great accuracy. So yeah, that's my opinion. Tell me your opinion. What do you think is going to happen next? What do you think Golovkin's going to do with his career next? Is he going to fight like the likes of Canelo? Is he going to fight Murata? What do you think is going to happen next with his career? It's coming towards the end of his career, and I think this is a guy that's actually had a lot of fights. If you think about it, he's had 400 amateur fights. He's been in training camp after training camp after training camp. He's been on the top level, and he's had about 40 professional fights. And not only that, in terms of all the amateur fights he's had, all the professional fights he's had, all the sparring that he's had, and all the training camps, he's never been knocked down once or hurt. So in my opinion, Golovkin is an absolute animal, but he knows in his own heart that fight against Derevchenko showed it, that he's now at the latter part of his career when he's not showing as much promise as he did when he was early in his career, when he was making like 20 consecutive knockouts in a row. So yeah, that's my opinion. Tell me your opinion. What do you think Golovkin should do next? If you was his manager, how would you advise him? What would you say to him? That's my opinion. So yeah, like and subscribe to the channel. I've got a lot more content coming your way. Peace out.